So welcome, Richard. We are so happy to have you with us here in SASFE. So I will be introducing Richard. No? He will be talking for less half an hour, and then you will be open for questions that he will be able to answer. So yeah, I have uploaded this also in Google Classroom. No? The title is Session Ethico-Aesthetics, the Expressive Arts and Artificial Intelligence. Dr. Richard Wainwright has been a member of the Expressive Arts team since 2014, beginning as a thesis advisor and now serving as an adjunct faculty member and dissertation supervisor for 3 PhD students here. His journey at EGS began with the PACT division, the other division that is part of our institution, no? Where he discovered a profound passion for expressive art through Heather Dawson's mentorship. Heather Dawson, our faculty member from Vancouver. This led to an award-winning art-based research dissertation at the University of Victoria, where he blended theory from both PACT and EXA. His work earned him the UVEC Faculty Research Award in 2022. Dr. Wainwright also teaches in the master's program at Thompson River University and has led EXA seminars at the Vancouver Art Therapy Institute and the San Diego Expressive Art Institute. He is known for his expertise in navigating complex research designs. After addressing issues with 21 students using artificial intelligence inappropriately, Dr. Wainwright developed successful interventions and discovered unexpected success using EXA theory-informed approaches. He believes that now, more than ever, it is the time to integrate ethics and aesthetics. Mostly, he wants students to use technologies in exciting ways. Welcome, Richard. We are with you now.
Hi, everybody. Can you give me some thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Excellent. And I am so jealous to look into the room there and to see a place that I hold really quite close to my heart. So I'm going to do my presentation today in a bit of a different order. So I'm going to start with an introduction, then I'm going to introduce myself. So the session will explore the integration of ethical and aesthetic considerations in the use of artificial intelligence in education. We will highlight I will highlight the key concepts such as caught in the act, and sort of transfer that into caught in the arts. And then looking at thought in the act towards how do we think with our sensory knowledge. And then looking at taught in the act, at ways that we can examine the interplay between creativity, technology, and academic integrity. So I will be drawing on the principles from the Expressive Arts Therapy, and I'll argue for an ethico-aesthetic approach. And I'll explain what that is in some pretty good detail later. So the ethico-aesthetic, it's the braiding of ethics and aesthetics, and that'll foster a deeper engagement, inclusivity, and responsible innovation. So how we use technology and how we look at these different EXA concepts. The session will consist of about 30 minutes of lecture, followed by a 30-minute question and answer segment. And if you look at the site, you probably would have seen the QR code. And the QR code will take you to an outtake page. Yeah, right there. If you point your camera to that, you'll be able to find a second web page that goes along with this. If you are in your second language or you have any kind of disability that impacts hearing or speaking, things like that, the site will help you with some of those things. And for those of you that are old school, you can find it at the at exa2024.com, and that'll give you some examples and some bots that I'll be using. So Jose Miguel's already introduced me, and yeah, I discovered expressive arts therapy with Heather Dawson, someone who's really important to me, and that was back in 2014. And at the time, I was in the PACT program. I was studying philosophy on the other side with those folks there, with Wolfgang, and really loving that program. And then I met Heather, and she gave me the purple Kool-Aid, and I fell in love with expressive arts therapy. And when I left my studies at EGS, I ended up finishing my PhD at the University of Victoria, and I took principles from both the PACT program and from EGSA and put them together into my dissertation. So I ended up with expressive arts theory as being something that's really important in my writing, and the philosophy that comes from the PACT side, and put them together in a really, what I think is a special way. So the technology is really important. Then the master's degree I did back in 2010, I looked at the critical online pedagogy. So at the time, nobody was really looking at how we could use online technologies to be able to do really significant earth-moving, I don't know, the critical kind of revolutionary work. So that was my earliest work on pedagogy and technology, and that received some good accolades. I was one of the first people to touch on that. And then the work that I did at UVic, blending those two theories, the two EXA theories, or EXA and PACT, it won me a nomination for the Governor General's Award, which I didn't win, but I was nominated, and a faculty award for research excellence, which I'm really sort of proud of. I'm probably talking fast, so if I am talking fast and you want me to slow down, you can wave your hands and I'll do my best to slow it down a bit. So this presentation is geared largely to academic researchers, the people that have their doctorates, that are doing their doctorate research, people that are doing their MA research. And one of the things that I talk about is the theory fatigue and how challenging this is for people. Oh yeah, as I'm going through here, I used AI to make a lot of the images in this presentation. So looking at the academic theory fatigue, we're facing both ways trying to do the work, and this was made in Midjourney. On that site that I sent you, you'll be able to see the prompts and the commands that I use for some of this. So yeah, the educators are increasingly burnt out and fatigued, while the technological tools that we've created grow smarter and more autonomous. The more pressure we have on us as academics, as researchers, as students. And I think it's important for us to take that into consideration. We're talking about new technologies, that it has impact on workload, and it burns us out and makes us anxious. And when people are coming to us with these problems with artificial intelligence, are they cheating and blah, 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 this adds more stress to the work that we're doing, more stress of what they're facing. And having some clear direction is really important. At least it is to me. I think it is. And in the fourth slide, the next slide on platforms and embedded technologies, this one it made me laugh because when I was doing it, I took the part of the speech that I was going to be doing today, and I put it into Midjourney as a tool of AI that makes videos, or makes, images. And it gave me platform shoes. So it's misunderstanding the platforms and embedded technologies as also being platform shoes. And I think it's kind of interesting to think about these technologies. They're not necessarily as smart as we give them credit for. It's giving us crap in, crap out. And sometimes it tells us more about the technology itself when we start to use it for doing these things than it tells us about what we're trying to do. In that first picture, Peter, can you go back to number one? Back to number one. That shows my picture. Next one up. Next. There we go. In this picture here, it's kind of funny because what I ended up doing is the picture of me is the one on the right. So what I did is I took the picture and I had ChatGPT describe what it saw. So it gave me a text. It went from image to text. And then I took the image, the text, how it was described, and I put it into Midjourney. And then it decided that I was going to look like the guy on the left, which is kind of crazy. And then inside the prompt, I put I Love Lucy from the TV show. So it built I Love Lucy into the back of the blackboard. So there's ways to play with the technology. Some of them end up giving really kind of funny responses if you play with them. Other times, if you depend on it, it's going to give you crap, right? So the platforms and the embedded technologies, virtually everybody in this room, if somebody tells you that you're not allowed to use AI, they're lying, because all of us are using AI every day in everything we're doing. Microsoft Word has AI-based tools within it. Docs does, or Google Docs, Grammarly, even the way that we use search engines uses artificial intelligence to give us some of the results that we ask for. So in today's age, it's probably more difficult to find technology that doesn't use AI than it is to find examples of what AI does. But for the most of us, when people are talking about don't cheat, they're talking about ChatGPT and the other text-based ones. So know that we're talking about platforms like the shoe, and we're talking about all the other places where those shoes can walk, all the API, or all the different embeddings that those softwares can do. So in the next slide, the ethico-aesthetics, response, analysis, and responsibility. If you take the look to the side, it's another image just playing with the mixture of words and image prompts, playing back and forth with what we're doing in the exercises here. So before I do this page here, on the website that I sent you to, and you guys can look at it now while I'm talking, or you can look at it after. There's a page there that I built. I built a bot. It's a ChatGPT bot. And what that bot does is it has all of my academic writing. Well, some of my academic writing. I think there's like 5 articles there in a book chapter. And what I did is I put it into a bot. So the bot will give you direct quotes from my writing. So it'll give you the quote word by word, and it'll give you the citation fully composed, the APA 7, and it'll explain to you what some of the materials mean. It's not entirely accurate all the time because these chatbots do really strange things sometimes. But if you think about it, it's kind of wild because now we don't have to just read the book, and I think that we need to always read the books that we're talking about, but it gives you the opportunity to actually interview the book. So real time, you can go in there and say, hey, what's this paper about? Hey, where are some quotes about, this, that, or the other? Hey, what did Paulo say about aesthetic responsibility? And suddenly you can read the entire catalog, find some quotes and some explanation of what it's about, and you can go back to the original text and really start to process it. And I put a bunch of different bots. I think there's 3 or 4 of them in that collection that give you the ability to use those things to solve problems with APA, to solve problems with reading the vast library of information that we have at EGS, some great authors, and how to read those things using our search functions inside those books. And of course, we want to make sure people buy the books that they're reading. We want to make sure that people read the books and understand the books. The tools that I'm talking about augment the work. So the concept of the ethico-aesthetic adventuring, and I talk about adventuring in a very specific way. So we've been how do you explain it? So with the way that we normally do AI, we treat it like a criminal offense, and then we have like a legal system that comes down the side. So we treat it as a mixture of legal, we caught you, you're going to be punished and have these consequences. And then on the other side, some of the other thinking about how we do aesthetics, right? And what I'm saying is that we don't need to think about these things necessarily in legal terms, being caught in the act. We need to be caught in the arts, and that we need to start thinking about the mixture of aesthetics and ethics, that there's a way that we have inside of the expressive arts theory to really bring those together. And I'm going to talk about how that sort of plays out. So it draws from the idea that of aesthetic responsibility in EXA, where ethical creations or ethical considerations are intertwined with creative practices. This integration ensures that the interactions with AI are both technically proficient and ethically sound. And I think that's really important for people to understand. The technologies aren't proficient yet. They're not giving us the detail that we need, the quality of the information that we absolutely need to have. We can't rely on them. So we need to keep practicing with them and use them properly. So the aesthetic response speaks to the core of our experience of beauty and the centrality of it to the generation of knowledge. And a lot of people would think that we can't use these tools as part of that generation of beauty, and I say that we can. So in Caught in the Act, in the next slide, the concept, the idea of the gotcha. So the students that I've had, the administration has wanted to take, not at EGS, but at this other university, wanted to take a gotcha approach to using AI. They want to say that, okay, we proved that you used 13.5% of your material was AI generated, and you're going to get this academic sanction and all these things. So a sort of gotcha style approach to the academic integrity, and that the AI is treated as an offense that needs to be fixed. And what I found at EGS during a recent sort of situation is that we could actually, not looking at caught in the act, but caught in the arts. To be caught in the arts and being able to see someone who's using the tool, for example, AI, and say, how do we use it in a more artistic way? How do we use it in a smarter way that's consistent with our understanding of aesthetics? So an aesthetic response refers to the personal, often profound reaction one has to an artistic act or to an artwork. And this response, the aesthetic response, originates from the body and is characterized by being soul-stirring, moving, touching, or breathtaking. And the reason why I think this is so important is that when we look at work that is created by AI, we think, wow, that's great, or we think, wow, that really sucks. And I know that when students have handed me AI stuff, I've looked at it and think, oh, Jesus, what have they done? They've taken their whole semester and they've just made a mess. They just made a mess. And I think that that's our first response is we know what we're looking at, we just know something's not quite right, and we're going to be able to figure out what the hell to do with it. And I think with the students that do that, they're seeing they're not proud of their submissions. They realize that they're submitting something that's not quite right. And as instructors and as you know, educators, researchers, we're reading it and we're thinking, oh man, I wish they hadn't done that, because it just sort of makes us feel sometimes even sickly to read this material that so obviously isn't the composition of the person that submitted it. So I think that first thing is that we need to look at that aesthetic response, and we need to honor it as teachers, as even as research, like anybody in the system. We need to be able to honor that and get away from the legal the legal responses where we just punish our way out of a problem. So the next one is slide 7, the thought and the act. And this is like a follow-up to what I was saying. The first part is the aesthetic response, trusting our gut feelings about what's happening. And then the second part is looking at the aesthetic analysis, another EXA term. And I found this term by listening to another professor who had just finished writing a book, and she'd asked me to look at some of her work, and this idea of an aesthetic analysis described as going back to the studio, doing studio work, getting into how we analyze aesthetically certain types of knowledge that's generated in the arts. And I thought that's such a great way of thinking about how we need to engage student writing. We need to reinvent the idea that we're working in these creative modes, creative writing, that these people are doing some amazing things. And when we get up and start working close with them, the same way as we would if they were doing dance or any other studio exercise, that we can start to get close to how to support people as they learn these tools. So in my notes here, I talked about getting away from the logic of the brain and treating the act of the AI, using AI as an act of the brain, to the logic of sensations, the logic of the aesthetics, the logic of our bodies, and to bring that into how we engage student writing, right from top down, and how we engage the idea of student research. So the logic of sensations, an interplay between the different forms of reasoning and highlights. And I think that when students are using these different ways of approaching writing as a sensory activity, it helps them use the tools that they bring to it, the AI tools, better. So what's the next slide? Taught in the act. So in this diagram here, I asked Midjourney to look at looking at rhizomes and root systems and the different ways that we network knowledge, that all of the knowledge that we have, it doesn't just sit within one person. And when we're doing research, that we want to be able to have a community of people around the students that are doing the work. And as researchers ourselves, and as people that are in the teaching field, that we want to feel a wider net of supports around us. And the idea with AI is that some of us are becoming experts in certain areas, some of us are experts in other areas, and that when we work together, we end up with some better capacity. As EGSA, we should be a center of excellence for all these things. When people are looking at how to do AI in art therapy or expressive arts therapy, that we have the capacity to bring that expertise in a way that nobody else can. So when I'm talking about taught in the act, at the very end, the aesthetic responsibility, we're taught that certain situations in the academic environment require a specific corrective stance. To be taught in the act emphasizes balancing creativity and ethics in education, performing what we call an ethico-aesthetic pact. So the aesthetic responsibility, again, another concept. The aesthetic responsibility refers to the ethical and intentional approach taken during the artistic process. It involves a commitment to the integrity and depth of the creative work, ensuring that the process is carried out with care and sensitivity. And the characteristics, the concept emphasizes the artist's or therapist's duty to maintain a deep, respectful engagement with the artistic process, focusing on the quality and meaningfulness of the work rather than simply achieving a certain aesthetic standard. So, and that one is the aesthetic responsibility is like one of the overarching principles of the field of expressive arts. What are our responsibility to the arts? What are the responsibility to creativity? This is a statement of values. There's a reason why we're all here. We hold the values that the creation of art does something powerful and important for the world. So if we talked from the very beginning, we got the aesthetic response. That's our gut feeling, our felt response to how people use the AI. It's going to be really great or really sad. It's going to be, wow, that was amazing. Or it's going to be, oh man, that leaves me feeling a little bit rough. And then going to the next step where I'm talking about doing the aesthetic analysis. And for me, that's like studio work. How do we get and engage this stuff at a deep level? So we got those first two pieces, and then taking it back to the community, the aesthetic responsibility. This is the community process that wraps around the entire field. So that goes forward from there. And so the next slide, it comes back to the rule systems. Peter, there we go. So if you take a look at that calculator, that's a really cool calculator. That's what AI does when I say, create a calculator about moral panic. It gives me 4 sevens and a bunch of strange characters. It's not a very good calculator, but it's good as an example of some of the challenges we feel that we face. And for this section here, this is why I think it's so important for us to start integrating AI into the curriculum. And the importance is that, so I was born in 65, 10 years later, 1975, suddenly there's a major invention, and it's the pocket calculator. And suddenly every person in the entire world was carrying pocket calculators in their back pocket, doing trigonometry and all kinds of other magical things with this new tool. There were two sides to the moral panic. People freaked out about these calculators because on one hand they were saying this is the wave of the future, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, there were people that were saying that if we give kids calculators, they'll cheat and they'll never ever learn how to do math. So there's a whole moral panic there around how to engage the technology. And the kids that are a year and a half older than me, they knew how to do math, and they struggled with how to use a calculator. Then a couple of years after me, they knew how to use calculators, but the way that they did math was different. But for a 2-year slot, there's a bunch of us that never really learned how to use calculators, and we never learned how to do math because people were freaked out about what to do. They're really freaked out. So we ended up losing the skills. And I'd suggest that right here, right now, we're doing the same thing. We're telling people not to use a tool that they're going to be using. And if we don't learn how to get our heads around this and do it properly, we're going to have that little demographic block again where people won't know how to use the tools as well as they could. And I think it's important for us. There's going to be, and there already is, all over the place, people trying to use the AI in art therapy and expressive arts therapies. How do we put a little bit of a frame around that so we're doing it in the smartest possible ways instead of just doing it in a haphazard way? Am I at the half hour yet?
I haven't been timing.
No. Okay, good. So encouraging the interaction. So the rule system and the moral panic. If I'm thinking back to what I was saying about the intellectual labor and theory fatigue, we've got a lot of people that are tired and they don't want to. They can't take on more stuff. But we're faced with all these pressures to learn about AI and these new technologies and all this stuff. So we end up with that. And some of the people aren't freaking out about it. They're just becoming sort of dissociative about it. They're just checking out. And that's having an impact on their students as well. So what I'm suggesting as we go through this process is that we need to establish some kind of, an ethical board or an ethical system or some kind of way that we can start to engage. For people who have no interest, some professors won't have any interest whatsoever in dealing with any part of this. So there needs to be a place for their students to go. And some teachers will want to be able to have the expertise at hand so they can do it. So I'm looking at ways that how we can build that into an ethical system where we embrace the existing expressive arts theories to it. So and again, trying to challenge and reconfigure the dominant narratives that often go with the moral panic, that moral sort of the collapse that goes with the new technologies, and to remember the calculator story. There really is a whole cohort of people that are my age that really don't know how to use a calculator and don't know how to do math. I'm serious. So the piece here, there's another piece that I put in, and I put this one in late. And it's a slide on theorizing tools and technologies. And this is a hard one not to talk about because if you read Steve's writing, his philosophical writing, so much is written about Heidegger and about the way that we build a world. We use technologies and tools. And I think that we lose track that when we're talking about AI, we're also talking about theoretical positions, like Mary Reich, she's probably you guys will know her. I can't remember what her last name is now, but dancer, and she was in an exercise at one of Heather Dawson's workshops, And we're in a tight frame, very exhausted. And she took a yoga block, and she tossed it into the mix. We're all dancing and doing these movement exercises. And the technology of that yoga block fundamentally changed everything we're doing. It was just like it seemed to make sense to everybody else who was a dancer, but to me it was like, how the hell does this happen where you got all these adults dancing in a square and suddenly somebody changes one little thing like a yoga block and it changes everything about how things are working. And I think that we need to bring back an appreciation for the idea that yoga block is a technology. Is it an extension of the therapist? Is it the arm of the therapist bringing it in? Is it just a yoga block? Or is it something else? Like, what does it have? Does it have a characteristic? And I think that we need to start thinking about these technologies again. And I think that we need to start to really honor the work that Steve did to bring the new technologies to that theory. And that's part of what I did in some of my PhD work, is to look at how those things mesh together. And I think that he gives us some really valid tools to be able to start to ask these questions and deliver some solutions to the problems and to the opportunities they create. And in some ways, these technologies may end up becoming prosthetic. The AI might be delivered through our fingertips, or it might be delivered through our voice. The opportunities and the things that the technology is going to be doing in these next couple of years is going to blow us all away. And we need to be ready for this, right? So the two ways of readying for ourselves for this, in slide 11, fugitives and escapes. So this is a great diagram as well. This one was created by a course Midjourney, and it was using part of the description that I did for the slides to go into the diagram. And what's really interesting here, and this idea of fugitive planning, and I think it's just so intuitive to what we're doing with expressive arts. So there's researchers, Harney and Moten, and they talk about fugitive planning. We're doing a cartography of where these opportunities to do exemplary work. These nooks and crannies aren't in the research labs. They are in the kitchens. They are in the garages. They are out in the yard planting seeds with our grandmothers. These are places where fugitive research opportunities lie. They're all over the place. And if we're really only focused on what we already know and the locations of what we know, we miss out on some of that traditional knowledge. We miss out on that family knowledge. We learn to not treat a kitchen as a place of serious research. And I think when we start to treat the kitchen and the backyard and the garage as being serious locations where we can springboard our research excellence, I think we change things, right? And those are the places where the technologies are being built, and these are the garage kids that are building these technologies now, and we need to be able to integrate them into what we're doing and how we're doing it. So the emergent qualities, blah blah blah. Yeah, back porches, kitchens, basements, halls, park benches, and our nightly improvised parties. This is where the AI technologies are finding application and where the brilliant things can happen and should happen. And I think that by embracing this dynamic approach, we can create flexible and adaptive educational environments that cater to the needs of our students and communities. Fugitive planning is about creating conditions for emergence where the act of planning is itself a form of becoming. So I think that's really kind of interesting if you think about it. So if we're actually trying to seed locations for the research, that act of seeding becomes another way that we create brilliant things. So the second part of this, so you got the fugitives, then you got the lines of flight. So the fugitives obviously ties to caught in the act, right? We need to be able to catch more, get caught in the arts. And then the last one is around the line of flights. And we see research normally as being a fairly linear process. We work through those chapters we work through the research design in a fairly predictable way. And we need to start thinking about different ways to do that. And I think that AI really changes our capacity to restart, to rebuild, to introduce new information. And one of my favorite philosophers, Felix Guattari, he talks about lines of flight. So you think about the trajectories, a line of flight from one spot taken off to another spot. But his lines of flight take spirals in all kinds of different directions. So I think that part of what we're doing here is that we're thinking about AI, the capacity to be able to engage lines of flight, the direction that we take all of these different opportunities. So in my examples here, I'm grabbing diagrams and I'm making fun of AI, the way that they're creating the, what do you call it? The different diagrams, the different images using text prompts. But it's also given me a bunch of different really useful images to start to work with. So the lines of flight give us the capacity to blast through existing structures. So if you think about the different ways that we've got, a traditional school of psychology, they have all of their ways that they've done research and all of the different ethics boards that they have. If we think about lines of flight, then we have ways that we can go around certain things, the ways that we can fire through them, or the ways that we can sort of like just land in there and start to really disrupt what they're doing. And I think these disruptions are really important as well. They disrupt the rigid hierarchical systems and enable new forms of subjectivity and social organization. Okay, so the ethico-aesthetic adventuring. So I've talked about another great picture. It's given you, all the street signs lead to aesthetics. I just loved it. The car license plate and the different directions, all of them lead it back to the things that we hold near and dear in the field. So the ethico-aesthetic adventuring, that car is like the adventuring. We're thinking about the previous one, creating fugitives, research fugitives. We're thinking about how to create lines of flight. Now we're thinking about how do we create adventures in the ethico-aesthetics. And that's a fine line between, we want people to experiment with the aesthetic opportunities of AI and respect the ethics. This is going to be a messy venture forward. How do we do it? I think we need to adventure, and we need to adventure closely with our students, closely with each other. And the approach combines principles from expressive arts therapies, such as aesthetic responsibility and poiesis, and creates a framework for addressing ethical concerns. So the conclusions, there's really no conclusions to this stuff. We're talking about a field of technology that's changing so quickly that things are starting and ending before we can see them. If you go into 2024, at the beginning of the year, so many of the startup companies that were working with AI are no longer there. They just simply do not exist anymore. Other ones that we didn't see coming are just like going like crazy. Let me just see there. So we're really just getting into the earliest territories of doing the work. So we're not looking at conclusions per se. We're looking at new starts, which is a familiar concept to EGS as well, so expressive arts. And then in my conclusions and the jump-offs, so I conclude with the idea that we have to have an ethico-aesthetic approach. We need to be able to do the aesthetic response. We need to do aesthetic analysis, all in a culture of aesthetic responsibility. We need to be able to look at the importance of AI literacy and how do we have an informed engagement with it. We have to remember this is fun stuff, right? We're shutting down some students that want to do really fun stuff. I've had a PhD student that came in and submitted a whole series of questions created by AI, and we sorted through them. We had a lot of fun. We came up with good stuff. not because we copied it, because we used that as a jump off point for what we were going to do next. So it's got to be it's got to be fun, and it's got to be adventuring. I don't have time to talk about it today, but I also think that a lot of times we're missing out on the opportunities for people with disabilities. And this idea of how do we create more inclusivity for marginalized community, people that are living in conditions that would never allow them to travel to Western universities, or people that may not be able to, people with autism spectrum disorder. There's all these people that are, a lot of these technologies are born from those adaptations, and looking at the different ways that they can be brought into our community, and how people can be more people and different people can be included in the work that we do. So I think that disabilities and inclusivity is absolutely vital to be doing it. And then back, of course, it's got to be fun, and it's got to be interesting, and it's got to be about risk taking, and it's got to be about making sense. And it's got to be, so at EGS, doing ethics reviews. We're doing ethics reviews for our students doing their master's and their PhD projects, their thesis and their dissertations. How do we include aesthetics into those processes? And how do we end up authenticating the roles of technology into that? And then how do we look at robust research design? What does robust research design look like in 2024 with AI? It's changed, it's going to change. And by building that twinning between the ethico and the aesthetic, we have new tools to do it. And I think that we also owe it not to look at, in the old way, we would look at case history and laws and courts, and there'd be records of all that stuff. I think that places like EGS need to have case studies. So we need to have case studies where we collect the stories of people using exciting new technologies, and we brand them, and we publish their dissertations, we publish their theses, and invite people into that kind of excellence that we have. And we demonstrate, we do this part of what we do. And to do that with a technology, we leaders in how AI can be used in expressive arts therapy and expressive arts research. And on that note, I think I'll hand it back to Jose Miguel.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. So now we open it up for questions or comments. You just stand up and speak out. Yes, please.
Thank you. Will you speak to the ethical use of ChatGPT in writing our dissertations, et cetera?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. Is that you already are using ChatGPT in writing your theses and your dissertations, because the tools that you're using all around them are tapping into that technology. So it's not just about logging into the platform anymore. That chat, that OpenAI is already built into what they call APIs, and that API is going through all the different technology. So even if you're not logging into ChatGPT, you're probably using it in one way or another. That is the first part. The second part is that we have to distinguish between what the institutional policy is and what our practice is going to be. And I think that we already know what we have some ideas about what the institutional policy is around universities all over the world. For the most part, they took very, very hard line about using chat in academic writing. They've said, no, it's cheating. Don't use it. If you get caught, you're going to be kicked out, or you're going to be sanctioned or whatever. And I think that fundamentally is not the moral, ethical, or smart way of doing business. I think that there's better ways of doing this. And I think it starts with committing with our students. We say straight out, somebody's having a hard time. We say, I remain committed to this individual. I remain committed. And I think that's been one of the things that have made AI policies work really, really well, is when we commit to our professors, we commit to our students, and we work through the appropriate use of technologies. Personally, I think personally, I encourage my students to use it, whether they're MA students or whether they're PhD students. I don't know if I can give you an example. Do you want to know an example of how I did one?
Please.
Yes.
So in this is probably about 6 months, or no, it's more than 6 months ago. I had 20 students, international students at Thompson Rivers University, and all of them were caught by me using AI, and they're brilliant students. And the solution to the problem is that we use more AI. And the way that I found it is that they were all finishing their, I don't want to be facetious because this is serious stuff for a lot of people, right? These are international students. They're all in the MA or a Masters of Education program. Most of them are from a fairly poor part of India, and that makes it's relevant to why this is a problem. So they're here on immigration path student visas. They're working one, sometimes two full-time jobs to be able to keep their studies going. And they're doing their full-time studies at the university. They're living in conditions where there's sometimes 2, 3, 4 people living in a one-bedroom space. So it's not ideal for students. And they had one semester to finish up their MA project, which would be very close to what we do. It's 120 pages for them to do this. It'd be about the amount of work that would go into a master's thesis as a capstone project. Different sort of approaches, but very close in terms of how much work needs to be done. And they're given one semester to do it. So every tool that I use is about how to collect work that they've already done to make it easier to get to the next step. So I asked all the students to submit their writing from their previous assignments and to give me all this information that we can figure out how to assemble into the introductions of their capstones. So I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is strange stuff because it's very obviously AI generated. Some of it is very, very well AI generated, and some of it's not. And I had to make some quick choices about this. Am I going to turn in a class of 20 people for having submitted all these different all these different papers, or am I going to sit down with them and do the very serious work of learning how to use the technologies? And I bunkered down and we did really, really amazing things. Each and every one of those students passed, and each and every one of those students learned how to use the tools. Um, in my website that I've sent you there's a link to the way that I actually built the course for them. And it went very straight things back. They stopped being allowed to use the tools to do their grammar. They had to be able to use AI to tell them what the problems with their grammar were so that they could go back and do the changes. And it was wild. It was such a wild experience because all of the knowledge that they had was already in those documents, and we used AI to be able to put it together, and they wrote it, so it was actually their voice. It was entirely legit, and they're better students now. They're able to use the tools. They're able to use them legitimately, and we got sign off from the faculty. The faculty knew what I was doing, and they agreed this was a good approach. And yeah, I do it exactly the same way. And I think the same thing comes up with students at EGS. I've had students that have. I'll leave that for another one. Does that answer your question at all?
Somewhat. What I heard you say is that you put in work and have ChatGPT give feedback on it that then the students can use to rewrite their work.
Yeah, using the platform that way is not at all what I'm talking about. The platform can do things, but it's more about discovery than it is about production of text. ChatGPT is really crappy at generating text. We know that. That's why we feel yucky when we read it, and why we feel really good when we've seen stuff that's had good generative capacity from the different tools, and people have taken it and made their own. That's the technology is everywhere. There's a difference between something that's done well and something that's just hijacked.
Hi, thank you so much for this really interesting presentation. I have a question. There are various virtual reality therapeutic experiences to treat PTSD or various phobias that are generated by AI. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's the Wild West. I don't have a lot of experience with the virtual reality. Like I used some of the old ones years ago, but I just haven't been able to get past the focus that so much of it has been created and designed around gaming. I use different virtual reality goggles for flying drones, and I know that gives me a different extension of my senses. I know that there's lots of people that are doing that with veterans in the province of British Columbia, but I'm not seeing the integration. I'm not seeing it myself. The integration between AI and the VR. Do you know much about it? Is there something that you wanted to share?
Well, there are some projects like Your Haven that train AI with different therapists, and then AI will generate therapeutic experiences for the clients. So, what are your thoughts in general about AI-generated therapeutic experiences?
I think that is part of what I really want to see people talking about and trying as we're moving through these introductory periods in AI use. And I know that at the Vancouver Art Therapy Institute, there's a few students that have been experimenting on the sly with using different tools in their practice, um, being able to collaboratively create a painting or being able to use different tools in the writing of poetry. And I think these things they create so many opportunities and ethical issues. And I think that's why we need to be at the front of this stuff, because this is where it's going.
Great.
The VR stuff that I've seen, and I'm sorry, if I'm leaning into my AirPod, it's just because the connection is not the connection, it's just your connection over there is a little bit low. The stuff I've seen around the VR is around the desensitization. That's the only things that I've seen so far. But if you have things that you want me to look at, you can send to me by email, and I can add them to that web page that I sent you. I can do some research and add it to that list.
That would be great. Thank you so much. That's exciting.
I'm curious about using AI as a tool as a therapist within an extra session. So as a tool for discovery, particularly with the younger generation who are very used to engaging with like technology as an interface of discovery all their way through in learning. And not so to go into a therapeutic situation where it's just between two people without the interface that they're used to. So does anyone use AI within a session as part of the aesthetic discovery response, but then the closure of the session is done with the people? I'm not sure if I'm articulating that well.
Yeah. I think it comes down to what I was saying a little bit before, the idea of the different platforms and the different ways that the technology is embedded. I think that you're probably finding children, toddlers, that are integrating the AI and the technologies in a very direct way that most of us adults would find really kind of bizarre. And they're not seeing it as being mediating technology anymore. There's not technology between, like, this not. You think about Steve's description of tools and technology, that the technology doesn't sit as a discrete entity between individuals, that it becomes sort of just a normal everyday of relating to each other. We don't necessarily see a phone as mediating a conversation with somebody. We just talk to them now. So I think that some of those ways that we see the technologies, that idea that they're a place to log on versus they're embedding into other locations, I think that's going to fundamentally change how we see these things in the therapeutic setting as well. I think this is the Wild West, and that we get into ideas about confidentiality and ethics and bias, like a lot of these concerns that are raised by people. On one side, we just, some people dismiss them and say, oh, this is the way of the future, forget about that, or don't worry about confidentiality. But I think that the confidentiality and the ethics and some of the things that we don't necessarily pick up on, these learning models were built on communities that are very white and right. These are not built on planetary communities with planetary voices, with a lot of concern over gender and ability and all the other things that we really care about now. So I think that we had as professionals. I'm not a therapist, but as people in this mode, I think that we have a double burden of being able to learn the technologies and to be able to safeguard the people we work with from the negative effects of them.
Hi, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the element of surprise in the sorts of imagery and text that is generated from AI and the role of surprise in like learning and change.
I love you with all my heart. I think that's what I'm always looking for, is that element of surprise, and I think that's the magic. Um, the images that I used in my presentation, the slide images, all of those were an element of surprise. There was something about them that really took me, like um, completely unexpected. And yeah, like just even the, wow, that's really interesting. Why is that interesting to me? And look at the way that the words were generated, and the just the different ways that these images emerged. And some of the it's hard to describe to people that if they don't know the tools to work through. For a good mid-journey image, you might be going through like 1,000 or 500 different things to get at, or to figure out which one that you made, and to be started trying to process why on earth it is appealing. For that one on the theory fatigue, being able to see us working both directions, and just how beautiful it is. We do that. We work in all these different directions. Some of them are paid, some of them are unpaid, some of them are just because we love what we're doing. And to be able to see that image evolve off of a number of different prompts, it's got that element of surprise. It's kind of cool. And then to be able to share it with other people in another part of the world, that's kind of cool too. And then somebody else, it's like remix mashup for music. You do something cool, and then somebody else grabs it and turns it into something better, and you think, wow, that was fun. But the working through this stuff is the parallel process of grabbing theory and then starting to generate images, and then working from the images back to the theory. Yeah, I think there's a lot of surprises in here, a lot of surprises. And it's also really surprising to hear from. I did a presentation out in Vancouver a couple of months ago, and I did a little segment, tiny little segment on AI, and I shared with them this program this web page that I'd built, and one of the students started to experiment with it, and then I was able to get back some feedback over what they were doing, and it gave me some ideas about what somebody else could do. And one of those tools that they used was shared with another therapist. So I think that those surprises that come out are not just in the creative output, like the images, but also in our practice. And I think that's one of the things that when I'm talking about creating a community, a practice community, an excellent practice community, and what we're doing with AI, I think that's the piece that I really hope for. Like, yeah, let's get some case studies in, let's get some case use, so that we know what people are doing around the world, and that we look like superheroes. This is what EGS is doing. They're great. They understand the tools, and they're doing some cool stuff. So yeah, there's lots of surprises, and I think we should be looking for them. There's sometimes with that fugitive, what I was talking about with the fugitives hiding underneath the kitchen counter or in the garage. Those are where the surprises, the research surprises, are for AI.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much for your lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. So
Okay.
I will be in contact with you by email. Okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.